I'm a 27-year-old woman who has been married to Jacob, my 28-year-old husband, for nearly 2 years. Our seemingly solid relationship hit an unexpected crisis just 3 days ago, and it looks like we're heading for a divorce because of it. It all began when Jacob brought home a female friend from high school named Allison, without so much as a word to me beforehand. It was early evening, and I assumed they had bumped into each other casually at the mall. I welcomed Allison into our home and treated her with the courtesy one would extend to any guest. However, as dinner progressed, a sense of unease crept over me. There was something about the way Allison interacted with Jacob that didn't sit right. It was subtle, yet unmistakable: the inside jokes, the frequent touches on his arm, the way she laughed a bit too hard at his every remark, even the unfunny ones. It all hinted at a closeness that made me uncomfortable. As the evening wore on and dessert was served, I anticipated Allison would soon take her leave. But hours passed, and by 10 p.m., she showed no signs of departing. Feeling increasingly uneasy, I pulled Jacob aside to ask what was going on. It was then that he dropped the bombshell: Allison had been evicted from her place due to unpaid rent over the past 4 months. Instead of seeking a temporary solution elsewhere, Jacob had invited her to stay with us without consulting me first. My initial surprise quickly turned to frustration and anger. Why hadn't he discussed this with me? I voiced my discomfort with the idea of Allison living under our roof, particularly after her behavior that evening. Jacob tried to downplay my concerns, insisting he was merely helping out an old friend in need. However, my gut feeling persisted, and I demanded that he ask her to leave immediately. Jacob hesitated, explaining that he had already committed to letting her stay and couldn't go back on his word. His refusal to prioritize my feelings over Allison's needs only compounded my distress. It was then that Jacob dropped another bombshell: Allison wasn't just any old high school friend, she was his ex-girlfriend from his senior year. They had dated until Jacob left for college, and according to him, their relationship had ended amicably. But learning this only heightened my discomfort. The thought of his ex-girlfriend, who clearly still held some affection for him, living under our roof was too much to bear. I was hurt and bewildered by Jacob's disregard for my feelings and our marriage. I insisted that he find a way to resolve the situation immediately. Instead, he turned the tables on me, suggesting that if I couldn't accept Allison staying with us, then I should be the one to leave. His response felt like a betrayal. Here I was, his wife of nearly 2 years, and he was willing to prioritize his ex-girlfriend's comfort over mine. Stunned and hurt, I retreated to our bedroom, trying to process what had just transpired. Later, when I ventured back into the living room, I found Jacob and Allison sitting together on the couch, laughing as if nothing had happened. Seeing them together like that only reinforced my sense of isolation and betrayal. In the days that followed, despite my hopes that Jacob would reconsider and prioritize our marriage, Allison's presence continued to be a source of tension. Her casual mentions of their past relationship, and the way Jacob seemed to brush off my concerns, further convinced me that our relationship had irreparably changed. Feeling unsupported and emotionally abandoned, I made the difficult decision to file for divorce. Allison's behavior, including openly bragging about her past with Jacob, only affirmed that my decision was the right one for my own well-being. Reflecting on everything now, I realize that trust and communication are the bedrock of any marriage. Jacob's unilateral decision to invite his ex-girlfriend into our home without my consent shattered that trust. While I had hoped our love would withstand challenges, his actions showed me that our priorities and values were no longer aligned. As painful as it is to end a marriage that held such promise, I know that prioritizing my own feelings of security and respect is paramount. I deserve a partner who respects our commitment and values my emotions. Though the road ahead is uncertain, I am confident that I am making the right choice for myself. Allison had the audacity to invite me to sit beside them. She then scooted closer to Jacob, forcing me to sit next to her while she cozied up to my husband. After that, I went into the bedroom, packed some of my stuff, and walked back into the living room. Ignoring Allison, I told Jacob that he could either kick her out immediately and we could talk, or I would leave. Jacob said nothing, just pursed his lips and looked away. Allison then spoke in a falsely sweet voice, claiming she didn't intend to cause problems, and that she was just an old friend, turning to Jacob for confirmation. I know Jacob hates being called Jake, but he didn't react when Allison used it. Frustrated, I slammed the door behind me as loudly as possible. Jacob didn't chase after me, nor did Allison, as this was clearly what she wanted. Feeling creepy but determined, I lingered outside to see what would happen. Through the slightly open curtains, I saw Jacob and Allison sit side by side. They had a conversation, and to my shock, Jacob eventually laid his head on Allison's lap, where she stroked his hair. Furious, I took out my phone and snapped a picture of them. Not wanting to stay around, I walked to a friend's house instead of driving. My mind was boiling over what I had seen, and I felt the need to get back at Jacob. Before knocking on my friend's door, I posted the picture online with the caption "Cheater." My friend, who had seen the post, let me in and asked what it was about. After explaining everything, she told me I had gone too far, as the post had already attracted hateful comments towards Allison and Jacob. She warned me about potential legal trouble. Understanding her point, I deleted the post. However, people continued to text me, urging me to repost it. My friend pointed out that these people were more interested in the gossip than my well-being. Realizing she was right, I turned off my phone and tried to distract myself. It was late, so I eventually went to sleep. The next morning, my friend told me Jacob was waiting in the living room. He had refused to leave without seeing me. Expecting an apology, I was prepared to reject it, but I was shocked when he started by asking if I was insane. He was hysterical, not just angry. He explained that someone had sent the picture to his parents, who now refused to speak to him. This was problematic as he planned to quit his job and needed his father's money to start a business. He demanded I talk to his parents and explain the picture was a prank to mend their relationship. His entitled demand angered me. I told him he deserved this for cheating on me. He said Allison was just a friend and that I was overreacting. He accused me of being insecure, jealous, and toxic. He even told me that after I left, Allison had been comforting him, which is why he rested his head on her lap. He insisted that nothing inappropriate had happened between them after I left because that's not who he is. I told him I didn't trust him and didn't believe a single word he said. I told him to leave because I didn't want to waste my day arguing. To me, he had been at least emotionally involved with Allison, and I couldn't accept that. I saw it with my own eyes, and there was no denying it anymore. Even if I tried to forget him resting his head on her lap, I couldn't ignore that he let her stay with us, despite my discomfort, and my ultimatum to choose between us. He picked Allison, and I wasn't okay with that. No other woman in my position would have been either. I told him to leave, and he did, but not before saying that this wasn't over, which sounded like a threat. So far, he hasn't done anything except text me relentlessly, telling me to talk to his parents and fix this. My friend thinks I should talk to his parents and address the situation. She believes that posting the picture of them was wrong, even if I wanted to expose them. She thinks it was an invasion of their privacy, and I feel she's right. However, I can't forget what Jacob did to me. I'm sure Allison is still living with him, and it infuriates me to think of them together in my house. I feel like I should do something, but I don't think he deserves my sympathy. Am I wrong for posting a picture of my husband with his head in his high school ex's lap after he picked her over me? Update 1. I decided not to talk to my in-laws or do anything about this because, as I mentioned in my original post, I don't think my husband deserves anything good right now. If he wants to fix the situation, he needs to do it himself. I'm not going to run to his parents asking them to forgive him when I haven't forgiven him myself. It's been 4 days since my post, and almost a week since he brought Allison home. I'm pretty sure she's still living with him. I created a fake account to stalk her and saw that all her recent stories have a very familiar background in my house. The audacity of Jacob to let Allison stay in our house after everything that's happened is unbelievable. But everything that could go wrong has already gone wrong, so he might as well stay with her. We're at the point of no return. I can't imagine going back to him. And he's probably not even going to try. So far, he has only been texting me to convince me to talk to his parents. I've been ignoring all his texts. I haven't found the strength to block him yet, but I will soon enough when I'm ready to cut him out of my life entirely. I'm not there yet because we've been together for a long time. And this is very hard for me. I was angry in my original post, but now that the anger has subsided, all I feel is heartbreak. This is the end of my marriage, and I know it. The funny thing is, I never saw this coming. Many of you asked if there were any signs of him being bored or wanting to be with someone else. Honestly, there were no signs. At no point did I ever think he didn't want to be with me. His cheating was something I never imagined, even in my worst nightmares. It was that unlikely. He and I have been in love for years. He was head over heels in love with me even before he asked me out. It took me a while to say yes, but once we were together, there was no looking back. Now this is where it ends. I never saw this coming, and saying I'm shattered doesn't capture how I feel about my marriage ending like this. My friends and parents have been very supportive, and I am grateful for that. I just hope I can stay strong through the divorce. I've already filed for divorce, and it's been a day since then. I don't feel as relieved and confident as I thought I would. All I feel is stressed out and worried about what's going to happen. I'm still living with my friend and working from home because I don't have the energy to go outside right now. Update. Jacob was served with the divorce papers today. He called to ask if I was serious, and I said yes. He started screaming at me, so loud that I had to take the phone away from my ear. He told me I was taking this too far, and tried to convince me there was nothing going on between him and Allison. I asked if she was still living in our home. After hesitating, he admitted she had been living with him since I left. He said she was his emotional support after I stormed out, which made me laugh. I pointed out the irony, as if not for Allison and their weird friendship, he wouldn't have needed emotional support in the first place. Jacob got very upset and said Allison always spoke highly of me, so it was disappointing to hear me treat her like a competition instead of a friend. I told him I didn't care about Allison. This was about him and our relationship. I was divorcing him, not Allison. He had let me down, not her. I expected loyalty and for him to prioritize my feelings and our marriage over his friendship with his high school ex-girlfriend. He told me I was being unfair and unreasonable, insisting Allison was just a friend, as if that would change anything. He asked what I would do if a male friend asked me for help. I truthfully told him I would help, but if my husband felt uncomfortable, I would prioritize my marriage over the friendship. My marriage was my top priority, but it wasn't the same for him. I would rather be with someone who shares my values. He then accused me of being too emotional and told me to deal with my feelings like an adult instead of storming out. He tried lecturing me about life's unfairness, but I disconnected the call. He sent a text saying I was immature and not the victim here, claiming he was the victim, because his parents weren't speaking to him and his business idea was on hold due to my decision to post that picture. He expected an apology, but instead, I sent divorce papers. I texted back saying I was sorry for posting the picture and suggested posting a similar picture of myself with my guy friends to even things out. Then I blocked him. Update 2. We are in the middle of settlement negotiations, and the divorce is not yet finalized. Yesterday, Allison texted me, apologizing because she had accidentally slept with Jacob. She claimed it happened because she was trying to comfort him during the divorce. I didn't buy it. After living together for more than 3 weeks, this couldn't have been their first time. I didn't care though. I was getting rid of him, and she would be stuck with him. She could have him, I didn't want him anymore. A man who cheats once will cheat again. If he cheated on me, his wife of 2 years, Allison would be delusional to believe he wouldn't cheat on her at some point. But that's none of my business anymore. I'm out of here.